possible.
So when you say fired at, are you talking about
the flak?
The flak, or
the flak.
Did you ever encounter enemy aircraft too?
Never.
Okay.
By that time, the Luftwaffe had been pretty well suppressed.
Okay.
I didn't get there until September of '44.
Right.
So they'd been there quite a while.
Mm-hmm. So I guess another question that I have is, did you have any really good friends that you made while you were in the service over there? Did you have any guys you were really close to?
Well, of course, all the crew, and that was just about everybody that I knew.
So those 14 missions that you flew, were these most of the same guys you flew
Always.
with? Always?
Always.
So you guys had a good camaraderie going?
Oh, absolutely.
Between y'all? Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, you did mention that you were a POW. So
That's
do you want to
correct.
take us through that? I mean,
yeah.
kind of from those 14 missions, kind of take us to how that happened.
Well, we were to be bombing the rail yards in Munich,
Okay.
the South
So
rail
in
yards
Germany.
in Germany. We would normally take off and fly in a racetrack pattern back and forth so everybody could form up. And then we would fly out over the Adriatic and up till we got to the coast up there. And then whichever direction we were going to Yugoslavia or Hungary or Czechoslovakia or wherever. Well, this time we made a left turn when we got there to fly over Austria. And we got within a few miles of the initial point where we were going to turn in to go to the target. Never got shot at.
What was the target?
The target that day was Munich at rail yards.
Oh, the rail yards. Okay.
Yeah, okay. And we lost the prop control on the outboard engine, number 4. And well, that wasn't so bad. The pilot just moved out away from the formation a little bit so he could not have to fight the control so hard. And then we lost the supercharger on the number 3.
Can you take us through what that is exactly?
Well, if you don't have the superchargers to power up and get air into the oxygen into the engine, while you don't have any power on it. So it
causes the engines to go out.
The engine is running, but it just doesn't have the power to do it.
Okay.
So we began to lose altitude. And then about 5 minutes later, we lost the supercharger on number 2 on the inboard left side. So we were going down pretty swiftly. But we were at 22,000 feet, so the pilot says, throw everything out. So we were
dumping everything.
I dropped the bombs, and we throwing machine guns out. And the flight deck on a B-24 is approximately 3 feet above a crawl space that goes up to the front, and that goes past the nose wheel. Well, I was right there at the bomb bay tossing out 50 caliber ammunition. And the first thing I knew that we were jumping. I didn't hear the alarm bell.
What was your altitude when you jumped?
12,000 feet.
So pretty high.
And the problem is that there were clouds at 12,000 feet, and we got into the clouds, and the mountains in that area were 12,000 feet.
And can you take us through again where you are exactly when this happens?
Well, we were in Austria.
Okay, so you're over Austria.
If approximately where Hitler's hangout was, the Eagle's Nest, Berchtesgaden.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Some videos were taken of him in the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But first thing I knew is when the co-pilot stepped on my shoulder, and I watched him disappear into the clouds. Then I turned around and looked. My pilot was getting up, and the alarm bell went off in my head that time, but I didn't have my parachute. So I crawled forward, put my parachute on, chest pack, put my parachute on, and crawled back swiftly. And I beat the pilot out of the airplane.
Yeah.
He had to walk about 6 steps, and I had to go about 12 feet. I beat him.
So
I was in the air about 10 seconds. That's about all I was in the air.
Oh, wow. So how was, so I guess a question that I have is, did you guys receive training on what to do when this happens, or is this kind of something that y'all just kind of?
Well, we had parachute training.
Right.
But as far as getting out of the airplane, no, we didn't have. We
You
didn't
just
have
knew how to operate the parachute.
We knew how to operate the parachute.
Okay. And you said you were in that. You landed in within about 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I pulled the ripcord, the D-ring, and it didn't work. So I put the second hand up there and pulled it, and and then I looked down, and there was an opening in between the trees. And I tried to climb the shroud lines, and that was the wrong way.
Yeah.
Bit back that way, and my chute collapsed in the top of a tree, and it flipped me upside down. And I lit in upside down in a snowbank.
Okay.
And it knocked me unconscious.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know how long I was out.
So when you came to,
I was getting straight,
Okay.
getting upright was
Right.
difficult.
Right.
I had to beat with my arms and legs and what have you. And
all right. So that had to be a crazy experience. I mean, did you have any idea where you were when you came to?
approximate, yeah.
Okay, so you did have an idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Were there any crew members around you or anything like that?
Actually, about 50 yards up the mountainside, there were my pilot and co-pilot, and they were yelling. And my navigator's chute had collapsed in the top of a tree, so he was just hanging about 20 feet up in the air. And he finally had his knife, and he took the knife out, got the shroud lines, and he came down real swift. Boom.
So did you meet up with them, and did y'all?
Well, yeah, we were captured by two little boys, one about 12 years old with a rifle, another one about 10 years old.
Wow.
The 12-year-old sent the younger one down to the village, which was about 2 miles away, and he came back with a couple of soldiers.
All right, I'm assuming Nazi soldiers.
They were Germans.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, how many of you guys did they capture?
Every one of us.
So all of the crew members survived. Then?
All the crew members survived, and all of them came home.
Okay.
They kept us in this little village jail for a couple of days. Then they hauled us off to Munich in a truck. And there we met a young German officer, and he said, how long we didn't speak much German or Italian, and he didn't speak much English, but he asked us how long we thought the war would last, and we told him 6 months. And he says, yes, and we've got a secret weapon. We're going to win the war in 6 months. So I don't know what he was talking about. But
interesting. Okay, so are we still in 1944?
We're still 1944.
And now you're a POW in Munich.
In Munich.
Okay, so what was were you in a prison camp or?
Well, from there they took us to an interrogation center at Frankfurt.
Okay.
And they double-timed us from the train station in Frankfurt, and the Germans civilians were not friendly. They threw rocks at us, bricks and rocks and whatever they could find. None of us were hit, but
right.
At the time they were 2 crews, so there were about 20 of us.
Okay, so 20 POWs. Had you met any of these other guys before?
No.
Oh, so these were all just from all over the place?
Yeah.
So you're a POW in Frankfurt. So how long did this how long were you rescued by American soldiers or
Well,
Russians?
it took a while because I was 2 weeks or 3, something like that, in Frankfurt. And then they took us to Stalag Luft 3. It's Sagan, Poland. And if you've seen the moving picture, The Great Escape, where the Brits dug tunnel and escaped out the tunnel, well, that was the camp I was in.
Oh, wow, okay.
I was there until I got there just before Christmas. And then I was there until February the 22nd when they moved us out because the Russians were close by. When I first got there, we could hear what sounded like thunder, which was the guns going off. And when they finally moved us, you could hear each individual gun going off.
From the Russians? Or
the Germans, all the Russians. I don't know which one it was. Yeah. Okay. They were fighting each other.
You were right there on the border.
Yeah.
Okay, so
they walked us out of there.
All right. And so where did they take you to? Just for deeper into Germany to?
Well, actually, we went to Spremberg, and that was a ordnance depot where they repaired vehicles and things like that, guns and vehicles.
Okay.
Now, my number at Stalag Luft 3 was number 8,970.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing that's the total.
That's the total number when I got there, just before Christmas. And we left in February, so I guess there were a few more by that time.
Right.
Took us to Sprimberg. 2,000 of us they put on a train, which we only moved at night. We didn't move in the daytime. It took 3 days. 2,000 of us to Nuremberg, which was Stalag 11, I believe. And the rest of them went down to Moosburg, which is just outside of Munich. That's Stalag 7A.
And Stalags are the names they give to these POW camps? Okay.
Yeah. The Stalag, I think, means warehouse or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were there.
And you're in Nuremberg at this point?
We're in Nuremberg.
Okay.
And
this is, by this point, we're talking February, March 1945?
This is February 45.
Okay, February 45.
Yeah, 40.
All right. How were you treated in these camps?
Well, at Stalag Luft 3, we were treated reasonably well. At Nuremberg, we didn't have any food at all.
It's because the war was winding down.
Well, what the Germans would give us was 1 small cup of hot water, which they call soup, and 2 thin slices of rye bread. That was the ration for the day.
Wow.
But at Nuremberg, Saigon, we had Red Cross parcels. They divided them up. In the room I was in, there were 12 of us. And we had 6 parcels per week.
Okay.
So each parcel was about 12 pounds. And it was different foods. And there was 12 of us. There were me from Memphis, 1 from Blytheville, and 1 from New York.
Okay.
And 1 Belgian, and the rest of them are Englishmen. And there was an Englishman there that was 70 years old.
70?
70. He had been captured on Crete. He was a supply officer. And when the Germans dropped their paratroopers in there, well, they captured him, and he was a 70-year-old POW.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Tough stuff.
Okay, so when you're in Nuremberg, how long were you there? Was that the last stop that you had as a POW?
No, they moved us out at about the middle of April because the Americans were coming closer.
On the other side.
And we were on the road there for approximately 8 or 9 days. I don't remember exactly. So we got down to Stalag 7A. And I guess about the 21st or 22nd, somewhere along in there of April. And they liberated us April the 29th. So there I was, graduated to 29th.
Yeah.
And a year later, I was liberated.
Right, liberated as a POW. Okay, so when you were liberated, what happened? How did that happen?
Well, they fought a pitched battle right over the top of us.
Wow.
You could hear the shells going back and forth. Boom, boom.
Wow. And you were just listening to it the whole time?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How long did it last?
About 2 hours.
Okay.
About 2 hours, yeah.
So what was the moment like when you saw friendly faces?
Well, the first tank that came through the gate, of course, it was just planks and barbed wire is what it was. About 10 seconds after it got inside, it was totally covered. You couldn't see the tank anymore. POWs climbed all over that thing right quick.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell what it was.
Right.
But only one POW was injured, and he got a bullet in the rear end.
Well, I guess if you're going to get one, that'd probably be the place to get it. Right?
Yeah, well, he wasn't injured too severely, but that was the only injury there was.
Wow, so you guys were pretty fortunate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very fortunate.
Absolutely.
So what happened after you were liberated and after you were...
Well, it took took approximately 2 days for them to fly in some C-47s and take us out.
Okay.
They flew us to Le Havre, which is called Camp Lucky Strike. And there we were put in the tent, and they told us, we're going to feed you, but don't eat too much because your stomachs are so small it'll make you sick.
Right.
Well, they put us in the chow line, and we had these canteens and things. They filled it up.
Yeah.
I had 6 bites, and I couldn't eat anymore. Wow. That was the most I could eat.
Right.
That was bad.
So how long was from the time you became a POW till you were liberated? Approximately how long?
6 months.
6 months?
6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
After you were back in the hands and you're being fed and you were put back into a friendly camp, were you allowed to go back home, or did you go back and serve, or how?
Yeah. Well, we weren't capable of doing anything.
Exactly.
I weighed 135 pounds when I jumped, and I weighed 98 pounds when I got out. So physically, I was in no position to do anything.
Right.
And they put us on a Liberty ship to bring us home.
Okay.
And then, it took 7 days to get back to the States. Went back to the New York Harbor, and then they camped Kilmer again, and they sent us home. I had to go through Atlanta, like everybody does these days.
Yeah.
Through Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I was given a 90-day leave. So I was there for 90 days, and then this was 45, let's see, May, about the 15th or something like that. I got 90 days, and then they extended it, and the war in the Pacific was over in August.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you, those are some amazing stories. I can't imagine being a POW and what that would feel like. But it sounds like you guys were pretty fortunate compared to others in terms of how other POWs were treated.
Yeah, the Pacific were treated a lot differently from the way we were. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess just some other follow-up questions that I have that I was just thinking of when I was thinking about this last night. Did you have any? This may not be something you want to talk about, or maybe it is, but did you have any friends that you knew that were killed during the war, or,
yes.
Or sustained
yes.
injuries
yes.
like that? Anybody that you were fighting alongside with? I know you said most of your crew.
Well, I did not know most of the other people in the group that I was with, but oh yes, our group went in May of '44.
And when you say your group, how many people are you? Are you
Well,
talking about guys you went to camp with?
No, these were people that were long before me,
Okay.
before I got there.
Right.
They went in May of '44, and they flew 187. The group flew 187 missions altogether, and they lost over 800 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does that make you feel, knowing that you survived and others didn't? Again, it may not be something that you want to talk about.
Well, no, I'm just very fortunate.
Okay.
Extremely fortunate.
Yeah. I guess any days where, I guess a good question would be, how many consecutive days were you constantly engaging the enemy and fighting the enemy? Was there a time when it was just like every single day?
No. We had enough people in the crews, or different crews, so that we did not have to fly every day.
Right.
Because I got, 2 months, and I flew a total of 20 times. And I got credit for 14 missions because we came back 3 different times with engines out. And if you don't go across where you're supposed to go and drop your bombs, you don't get credit.
Right.
So the other missions were training missions.
Okay.
So 20 times up in the air in 60 days, something like that.